This is Behind the Mic with Kirkus Reviews, where the subjects are audiobooks and the actors who narrate them. I'm Jo Reed, and with me, contributor Alex Ritchie. And whenever Alex is on, I know I'm going to learn something because she listens to books I typically don't, and I'm introduced to whole new characters. So welcome, Alex.
Hello, I did bring horror books with me.
I know you did. Tell me just briefly, because I don't like being scared. What attracts you about horror?
I'm glad you asked because it's really difficult to describe, but I would say it's a way for me to confront real issues in the real world in a way that is so almost comically exaggerated that it's more tolerable to examine. Like, these are things that make me change how I want to think about the world. And that is what brings me to horror every time.
Okay, that's really interesting. I do that. A lot of people are worried about cancer. I worry about getting gangrene.
Oh, yeah.
What are the odds? Very little, but it's kind of like I put all my illness fears into gangrene.
Oh, yeah. And like the horror version of that cranks it to 11 to the point where it's obviously impossible how it could happen, but it's a way to like safely think about it because you know it's not real.
Exactly. All right. So what are the three you're talking about today?
Today we're going to talk about The Girl with 1,000 Faces by Sun Yee-Dean, narrated by Natalie Naudus. Then we'll talk about The Summer Fun Massacre by Craig DeLuey, narrated by Garrett Michael Brown and Elizabeth Cappuccino. And last, we will touch on Nothing Tastes as Good by Luke Dumas, narrated by Graham Halstead and an ensemble cast.
Well, we're beginning with The Girl with 1,000 Faces by Sun Yee-Dean and narrated by Natalie Naudus, who is, I know, a favorite of both of ours.
Yes. Yeah, I go out of my way to find Natalie Naudus books when I can, because ever since I heard her for the first time in 2020, I fell in love. She is so good. So The Girl with 1,000 Faces is a gothic horror fantasy about a young girl that washes up on the shores of Hong Kong with no memories, but she has the ability to talk to ghosts.
Which is a fabulous premise.
Yeah. It really grabbed my interest when I saw this. And Natalie Naudus is just the perfect narrative choice for this one. She brings the right kind of emotional precision, the kind that she's known for, and she just tugs at your heart, and she leaves you in tears. And that's just exactly what this needed.
I really liked this. I listened into this book a lot and definitely going to go back and listen to the whole thing. I thought she really was doing more than just distinguishing characters. She's helping us navigate the novel's very unusual structure, narrative structure, without drawing attention to any mechanics.
Yeah, in the way that if you were reading the physical book, it might be a little more jarring, but she makes it so easy to follow along. I know you're talking about the perspective changes when you say that.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Tell us a little bit more about what happens with our girl of 1,000 faces.
So Mercy lands in Japanese-occupied Hong Kong in 1942.
Again, very unusual.
Yes. And she's got the ability to talk to ghosts, and she uses that to earn a living and build a new life among the haunted slums of Kowloon Walled City. And then a powerful new ghost appears, drowning the residents, and it claims to know who Mercy is. And then we have, watching over the two of them, sometimes acting as the narrator of the story, which sometimes leads to second-person perspective, is the goddess of mercy and compassion. Her job is to fill in the gaps of missing memories, and there are some really painful betrayals and traumas, and Natalie Naudus just perfectly executes those.
That setting of wartime Hong Kong feels more like just a backdrop. There's something about her narration that really conveys the texture of that world so vividly, I thought.
Yeah, because wartime is always really tough, but you really get a feel for what the people are thinking in that time period, which was really helpful for me because it's not a war I'm as familiar with.
Now, for listeners like me who don't usually gravitate towards horror, this one seems to me to be more, at least where I got to in the book, more emotionally unsettling than frightening.
Right. It's not really scary. The characters experience traumatic events, but nothing is described in a way that's gruesome. But there are certainly lots of ghosty things happening.
I think it works as much as an historical fantasy and mystery as it does a horror novel.
Yeah, I think that for listeners who enjoy those types of stories, this could fit right in for them.
Yeah, let's listen to a little bit. Set this up.
Sure. So we're at the beginning of the story. Mercy is with her cat ghost companion, Bao, and they're being tasked with helping the local ghost problem.
This is an excerpt from The Girl with a Thousand Faces. It's by Sunyi Dean, and it's read by Natalie Naudis.
Be a good little hunter and find this rogue spirit for me, since you're in such a hurry. Nose twitching, he leaped from her shoulder and began drifting serenely above the sweat-soaked masses. A few people flinched, but most ignored him, recognizing that he was no threat. Main streets like this one were guarded carefully by triad exorcists, and the only ghosts who traveled along it openly were those, like Bao, who had special exemption. Mercy, who could not float eerily through the air, began shoving her way through the crowd after him. The sooner she got this done, the sooner she could get back to the fan-cooled bliss of her own flat. And have a damn bath.
Aside from her skill in characterization, which she has profoundly, at times I forgot, oh right, this isn't a multicast. She has such a keen sense of that narrative voice that drives the story forward.
I couldn't agree more. I love how you describe that. It's like, is there only one person here? Like, surprisingly, yes, there's just one person.
Okay, so now we're moving on to The Summer Fun Massacre by Craig DeLuey, narrated by Garrett Michael Brown and Elizabeth Cappuccino.
That's right. Just in time for the warm weather. Let's hear about it. So this is a horror audiobook about a group of camp counselors that are murdered and how similar this massacre is to one that took place a decade earlier at the same summer camp.
Yes. And it takes place in Texas. And somehow that makes it scarier for me because Southern Gothic has such a hold on my soul.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, so this one is narrated with Southern accents for most of the characters, like you said, because it takes place in Texas.
So tell us a little bit about the characters and Garrett Michael Brown's narration.
In the summer of 1983, a group of camp counselors are slaughtered, and Tom's then girlfriend is the only survivor. The story we listen to takes place 10 years later. Tom is now the deputy sheriff, and the massacre that just occurred at the new summer fun camp is suspiciously similar.
And as you point out, it is described in great gory detail.
Oh, yeah.
The gore is gory, but I listened to it and it seemed less immediate because we don't see it unfold. We're seeing the results.
That's right. So you definitely have someone approaching a scene that is quite gruesome. And the scene of the massacre is thoroughly described.
Yeah. But I didn't feel frightened by it.
Right. Yeah. And I think part of that comes down to the way that Garrett Michael Brown approaches this one is really detached, which is really great for characters who are coming into something and it's like really traumatic what's happening. He knows exactly how to handle that. He's not narrating it like it's a scary thriller. He's narrating it just as it is, straightforward. And that was a really good approach for the scene of horror in this one.
And I like setting the second massacre 10 years after the first because I think it gives us the story an immediate history. You know, it isn't just surviving one horrific event. It's about what lingers and what people may have chosen to forget and what they can't forget. So it's a shadow over it.
Right. And there's a folk horror element for this one.
Right.
And for this one, Tom, the main character, is immediately suspicious because everything around this is just really weird. The sheriff is up for re-election and he wants this to close quickly. He wants to solve this case and move on because he thinks that's the best way to win his election. But the evidence isn't lining up. And Tom's going to investigate further throughout this audiobook, even if it means he has to reconnect with his ex-girlfriend. And that's where Garrett Michael Brown has this really great balance because there's There's the descriptive side of coming up to this horrific massacre, but then there's the side of the story that is more like a detective novel, almost like a police novel. He describes it a lot more relaxed, with his pacing and his tone when Tom is just going through the investigative process.
I agree. And that's what I wrote in my notes. It feels like it's turning into a detective novel, which of course I find appealing because I love detective novels.
That's why I brought this one to you. I thought once you get past the beginning,
Yes. Yes. And I really liked Garrett Michael Brown's characterization of Tom.
Yeah.
Most particularly.
Tom's a really likable character, and a lot of that comes through from the narration.
Now, how does Elizabeth Cappuccino come into this?
So she's got only a couple of segments of story here. She narrates firsthand witness statements that are given by the surviving victims of both massacres. And I haven't heard her do audiobooks before.
I have not.
But I really appreciated what she did. She was real gentle. She was real deep in their emotions. And I would love to hear more from this narrator.
I am assuming we're going to be hearing from Garrett Michael Brown in the excerpt.
Yes, we are. Yes. So for context, Deputy Sheriff Tom is approaching the scene of the Summer Fun Camp massacre, and he finds a survivor, but he doesn't know where the killer is.
Yeah. Okay. I remember this from listening to it. Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
This is The Summer Fun Massacre by Craig DeLuey. It's narrated by Garrett Michael Brown and Elizabeth Cappuccino.
I need you to put that hatchet down so we can talk, okay? She slowly wags her head. Half her face appears to balloon before his eyes. They're dead. The counselors? He killed them all. Who? Who did this? He sees you all the time, Laura says. You can't run. You can't even hide. When he first entered the cabin, his instincts told him the girl was a victim and not the perpetrator, and his rational mind now catches up. She fought tonight and is still standing, but there doesn't seem to be much left of her, except a stubborn will to survive. Laura came to this cabin to light the lantern and make her last stand. Still, he needs her to drop the weapon. Awareness that his backside faces an open door gnaws at him. A killer may be on the grounds, and he's vulnerable.
When I was listening to this, I was really saying to myself, oh my God, you are vulnerable. Turn around. You shouldn't have an open door at your back. No. I found his accent, especially of the different characters, very convincing.
Yeah, he did a really good job with that.
Now, for you, did the mystery keep you listening as much as the horror?
Well, I don't do a whole lot of novels that read like detective novels.
I know.
But the sheriff is so easy to dislike, and Tom is so easy to cheer for. I had to find out what was going to happen.
Yeah, I feel that way too. And I'm feeling, and I might regret this, but I'm actually feeling like I could listen to this at night.
Yeah, I think you could probably manage that. I think you could.
And finally, Nothing Tastes as Good.
By Luke Dumas, narrated by Graham Halstead. And then we have a cast. This is Ali Andre Ali, Raquel Beattie, Cassandra Campbell, and James Anderson Foster.
Give us a little bit of summary, please.
Emmett jumps at the chance to participate in a trial for a new weight loss drug, but the monstrous consequences are larger than anyone expected.
You could write blurbs for books, you know that?
It's always hard to sum something up in one sentence, but I have some practice with it.
Go ahead, tell us a little bit more.
So Graham Halstead is our primary narrator for this one. But you've also got the ensemble cast, and the cast's job is to read news articles and also social media commentary. So it's a really effective combination. The cast does a really great job differentiating the many voices that are weighing in on the happenings of this narrative. But then we've got Graham Halstead. So Emmett has struggled with obesity most of his life. Even though he has the degrees and the passion to be a teacher, stigma about his size impedes his job prospects. So instead, he's working customer service at Target. Emmett is also a gay man, and his size has certainly hindered his love life. But that's when he hears about the trial for the new miracle weight loss drug called Obexity. He signs up and immediately experiences its effects, this rapid weight loss without any change to his daily routine or diet. But during the trial, he starts losing stretches of time, and he has these new cravings that are a bit more murderous.
This is an uncomfortable listen in more ways than one, because listening to Emmett grapple with his obesity and his image of himself and what he's internalized and the way he's treated was a really, really hard listen.
Yeah, I think it immediately makes you want to empathize with Emmett. He's a really good main character in this situation, but it is uncomfortable. Graham Halstead really connects to Emmett's internalized fat phobia, his desperation to change, and just how much shame he feels for just being the way he is. You're right. It is very hard to listen to.
And it struck me that the horror is growing out of something that's so recognizable, so before anything that deals with horror actually happens, Emmett's shame and the way other people treat him really have created a very unsettling emotional landscape.
And it's uncomfortable how familiar it feels, because we know people in everyday life that treat bigger bodies that way. It's just, this is what horror is made to do. It cranks this idea up to 11 and it forces you to examine it. I thought this was a really smart audiobook.
I agree. And I also like the idea of bringing in the news reports and social media alongside the main narration, because the book expands beyond Emmett's point of view and we get to hear the public reacting.
Yeah. Oh, and that's the reason to bring in the cast, because it really feels like there's just this crowd of people that feel like they deserve to have a voice about Emmett's situation.
Tell me how Halstead's performance, how it evolves with the story.
Oh, I'm glad you asked that question in particular, because it definitely shifts. Near the beginning of the story, it's just a lot of shame, and you can't help but feel sorry for Emmett. But this is a book with cannibalism in it. So in case my hinting wasn't clear, that does happen. And that is revealed at the very beginning of the book with one of those news articles. And when it gets to the point where Emmett has to confront the fact that that is a side effect of this new weight loss drug, the way that Graham Halstead adjusts his delivery of these gruesome details becomes almost comfortably casual. It's really uncomfortable, like in the best way. It's really uncomfortable.
Let's hear an excerpt and let me know where we are in Emmett's journey in this excerpt.
You're going to hear a clip that takes place really soon after the Obexity trial begins, and Emmett isn't seeing any results yet.
Right. This is Nothing Tastes as Good by Luc Dumas, and it's narrated by Graham Halstead and a multicast.
Unable to resist weighing in daily, though the trial protocol recommended only twice a week, Emmett despaired that he still hadn't lost any weight after the first 6 days. He remembered reading that some of the participants would be given placebos, and he began to worry he was one of them. It's not like they would tell him, right? It was just his luck to be admitted to a trial like this and then get stuck in the control group. So much time, energy, and hope wasted on nothing. But what about the procedure? Surely they wouldn't have put him through all that if they were just going to give him a weekly saline injection. Either way, he wasn't losing weight, and desperate measures were called for. After digging his track shorts and zip-up hoodie out of the dresser, he drove the entire 0.7 miles to 24-Hour Fitness, signed in for the first time in 8 months, and immediately ran into a guy he'd hooked up with 50 pounds lighter.
And even in this, you can hear that vulnerability in his voice.
Yeah, it tugs at your heart.
The novel is obviously using horror to critique diet culture and fat phobia. For you, as an experienced listener of horror, did the social commentary feel fully integrated into the story?
Yeah, it didn't feel to me like I was being hit over the face with it. And I think part of that is because it's just such a personal journey for this one character. And it feels relatable, but it felt way too real. I enjoy horror that does this sort of social commentary, so this worked for me.
Well, Alex, once again, 3 books I wouldn't have picked up, and I listened into them, and I'm going to finish 2 of them.
All right, I'm happy to hear that.
And I'll talk to you next month.
See you then.
You've been listening to Behind the Mic with Kirkus Reviews. We drop on Thursdays, and if you follow us, we will just appear in your feed. And while you're at it, follow Fully Booked by Kirkus Reviews. Fully Booked is the podcast for book lovers. Every Tuesday, host Megan Labrise brings you author interviews, industry insights, and recommendations from the bestseller list. Find your next great book on Fully Booked by Kirkus Reviews. You can follow Fully Booked and Behind the Mic on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, or wherever you get your podcasts. And then stop by kirkusreviews.com to check out reviews for both print and audiobooks. Behind the Mic is produced by Jessica Lockhart. Michelle Cobb, Stephen Cummings, Leslie Fine, Alan Minskoff, Alex Ritchie, Laura Rossi, Laura Simeon, and Kendra Winchester are our contributors. Jennifer Dow is the editor, with assistance from Alicia Langerman. Tom Beer is the executive producer, and the music is William Ross Chernoff's Nomads 4-Way. I'm your host, Jo Reed. Good listening.